Yeah, we're taking care of Garo a bit early this year. While we're still doing Yami wo Sumono in October, since I've been on a grinding bend for the Final Fantasy XIV Garo event, well, I wanted to look into the two interim movies between the end of Koga's Tales and the beginning of all the spin-off title bearers.
Garo Soukoku no Maryu, which translates as The Lament of the Demon Dragon. There's also a kanji in there that translates as blue, which keeps with all the Garo series having a color thematic with their titles, was Garo's second theatrical feature after Red Requiem, and the last film to be used as a wrap-up to events after a given full series, carrying on from the plot points about Gajari and the quest he put Koga on after he assisted him in stopping Sigma Fudo's plans.
But before we move on from that, I should probably address what has to be one of the biggest things I have screwed up in the history of my show. I completely missed the evidence and citation that Sigma was Koga's childhood Makai Knight trainee teammate.
I was informed of this screw-up thanks to Tom Constantine of the Tokusatsu Network last December.
And if you do not follow their site, you should. They are an excellent resource of all things Tokusatsu. Hell, I currently support them on Patreon.
Anyways, he pointed out what completely passed me by. That the kid trainee that also fancied himself a mage did in fact survive the attack by a horror. But the thing was, with how it was shot, it didn't look like he was using a magic ability to escape death, just being flung to the side in a way implying it was fatal. Sold by young Koga's reaction, which was supposed to further that implication, and made worse in how it's literally a blink-and-you-miss-it detail.
Apparently, though, Tom interviewed one of the directors and that scene was just tacked onto the episode as it ran short, and they had to fill out the runtime. As a result, I am not the first nor will be the last person to have that mistaken assumption. I feel that it's embarrassing I didn't see this, with how often before I've zeroed in on subtext and unintended meanings and stuff I've reviewed. What can I say? No one's perfect, I screwed this one up, and as much as us internet reviewers try to showcase the content that explains our opinions on them to the best of our abilities, we're not exactly infallible.
Coupled with Koga seeming to talk to them in the present, I simply applied Occam's razor to the situation and thought those three were supposed to be the spirits of his friends cheering him on from the afterlife, as Garo has used that kind of scene and symbolism regularly in the composition of its stories, and it's rare an entry doesn't. Hell, this movie uses that symbolism, thus the viewer's expectation is to think of them as dead, so then you're confused when the twist comes up later.
And I blinked. Hell, I had to slow down the scene in my editor to even see what he was talking about, as the details just all blurred together.
Still, this scene is the only tangible evidence to that series-ending twist, which is provided by the show to justify it, which doesn't mediate my general issue with Sigma being a terrible villain, nor my issue with that final battle and scene. Sigma should still be dead due to prior events. This is the only time this twist is given lip service to, which is a big no-no for this kind of thing, and it doesn't add anything to learn this. Sigma clearly didn't know Koga was his training partner back as a kid, nor did that factor into how Koga dealt with stopping him. Sure, it explains a few things, like what happened with Wataru, but nothing that really expands on him beyond what was already there. And unless you figured out that twist before this scene, its intended symbolism of a severing bond between two old friends completely falls flat.
I'm not asking them to scream such subtext in the reality of the twist from the rooftops, but the clues should not be too immaterial to be seen if you're seeding things correctly. I'm not oblivious to such, I think I've shown that from other mystery-driven stuff I reviewed, but in this case, I just wasn't seeing it.
Anyways, we open on a beneficial recap of Gajari's deal with Koga, asking him to specifically find the Fang of Lamentation in the Promised Land, and sends him on. Only upon arrival do we see him having lost Zaruba, his magic coat.
God, I want that coat. Or a coat like that. What, I like my coat, but it could use some improvements. I only need how to learn how to sew sleeves that won't be constricting, for example.
And the Garo-ken, though this journey of his seems to be taking a long time, even though he hasn't really even started it yet, as we cut briefly to the real world and Rei watching some kids train. Only for it to be revealed he's just waiting for his final match in a tournament of Makai Knights, learning from Leo that his last opponent is going to be Tsubasa.
Easy fight then! Tsubasa has yet to win a fight on screen. 'Tis the curse of all that choose the life of a lancer. Just ask Kukuru Lane.
Why is this tournament so important to them? Well, the winner gets a chance to have a brief trip to the realm of the dead, so if Rei wins, it's likely he'll be able to see his father, or dead girlfriend Shizuka, to at least obtain closure from the thread left over from the original show. Back with Koga, he awakens to find his gear gone, seeing the Garo nearby, and it turning into a dog?
I get it!
In chasing it, however, we see just how far down the rabbit hole we've gone.
Yeah, the entire movie is like that. Welcome to Kouga Saejima in Wonderland.
Now, speaking of, these knights are dead ringers for the knights from Kaoru's book, The Black Flame and the Golden Wind. Funny, that. Before he can calm them, another monster rises and attack, the knights scattered by it, leaving with him what they were carrying away. A winged painting, revealing a blue woman?
Zan? When did you grow hair? And come back from the dead?
This being calls herself Maryu, greeting Koga, and explaining everything here is literally a thing, an object given form and automation by human imagination.
I can buy that, as this realm is extremely imaginative. Hell, there's more of a manifestation of imagination in 1 minute of this entire movie than there can be found in the entirety of Russia Sentai Tokyoger.
Regardless, she was to be a tribute to our evil queen cliché for the film, Judam, who is another inhabitant of the realm that covets all things beautiful, but also used them as living batteries for herself and her castle. Her minions seen as easily disposable cannon fodder, she animates and destroys at a whim, using the remains of 2 of the escapees to learn of Koga, a human's, presence in this realm. For saving her, Maryu leads Koga to the Shrine of Wisdom in hopes it will lead him to the goal of retrieving the Fang of Lamentation. But along the way, they come across an odd wood man when Koga senses something around him. But with nothing helpful here, they make to move on.
じゃあな、かかし。
おい、今なんて言った？
じゃあな、かかしと言っただけだ。
Damn, he must hate Naruto more than I do to go after the incompetent teacher that facilitated most of the Team 7-based bad.
Actually, no. One of the things that can cause the denizens of this realm to die is for them to lose their names and a sense of identity. This one only just hanging on to a thread, and Koga just gave him a new name.
There he is. This was where I was expecting to see Yuki Kubota come into things.
Though considering I'm still used to seeing him most from Kamen Rider Gaim, it's still odd to see him actually smiling and joyously energetic, like he spends most of the movie being.
Though all things considered, maybe I shouldn't have said this is Koga in Wonderland if this part of it is going to be more the Wizard of the Promised Land.
We're off to see the Shrine Keeper, the wise old Shrine Keeper of Oz. Or maybe this is more Mary Poppins. Gah. However, Koga's kindness has put them in danger, for this was a graveyard of the Nanashi, nameless ones, who have amalgamated from the remains of this world and now wish for a name and identity, attacking Koga to try and gain one. To be remembered by someone. Anyone! And Koga can't give them that. They flee as Kakashi returns to his own homestead, the Toei backlot?
Seriously, this seems like it'd be a stage set for an early 2000s Sentai series. Gah! Springtrap! Damn it, where are the door controls?
Seriously, if you painted this guy yellow, his face would be a dead ringer for that damn Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic.
And now I'm curious if Scott Cawthon has ever seen Garo.
Regardless, Kakashi reveals he's hunting the demon dragon called the Maryu, but a scale he needs in his hunt has been stolen by Judam, meaning he needs to go after her.
Gah! When did I get shoved back into Ken Urobuchi's head?
Koga reaches the shrine and learns the wisdom in it is protected by a guardian. Zaruba?
Well, he is an object. Made sense he'd be affected like everything else.
And yeah, he's forgotten his previous identity, taking one to maintain his form, and the tasks of that identity as the Guardian of Wisdom, putting him into conflict with Koga. So now Koga has to fight Ring.
You always seem to come just in time.
It's pretty entertaining to see these two fight, actually. Though eventually Koga's superior skill allows him to pierce Zaraba's junk form body and make physical contact with him, restoring Zaraba and his memories to normal. With his memory back, he explains that time moves differently here for objects, and from his perspective, he's been trapped here for centuries, in part explaining how he could be swallowed by that false identity. As they leave, Koga calls out someone who's been following them for some time, a gnome archer named Kiria, who asks if he can help them against the Maryu. This demon dragon appears when the moon of the realm, that honestly reminds me of that smiling moon from Soul Eater, turns pitch black, and its emergence onto this realm results in naught but the erasure of the form and identities of the citizens, reducing them to naught but the Nanashi we'd seen earlier. Though it's not the only force doing that in this realm. Judan is shown to be enacting much of the same in her green castle, taking the names and thus powers of her victims to animate her minions and the film strips and green screen that create her domain. In exchange for his help, Kiria is willing to assist in Koga's own quest for Gajari's Fang. Koga finally choosing this time to elaborate on what Gajari is, an entity the Makai priests encountered in ancient times, which gave them the knowledge needed to develop the Makai Knight armor in order to battle horrors. While Gajari itself is a neutral observer, humanity amuses and entertains it. Thus, while it mostly stays out of the conflict, the contract it's achieved with humanity requires it be appeased from time to time when someone asks for its favor, usually to retrieve its scattered body parts.
Though as it's an incorporeal eldritch god, and this is a land where objects and even metaphor gain material form, that Fang could be literally anything.
Though the Maryu is a decent clue to explore, as apparently it has the power to travel between dimensions, something Gajari has the power to do. So it may be tied to it, especially as that power is why it interests both Judam and Kakashi. Kiria takes the group to his homeland, a giant dragon egg.
Quick! Before Adele shows up! Seal it! When did this become Babes in Toyland?
わしら者たちは人の歌声を聞くと浄化できるという言い伝えがありましてな。
This so explains Ren's ability in Black Blood.
Of course, Koga's too much of a serious sad sack to acquiesce to that, instead being drawn into a kaleidoscope dance show.
I feel like I'm on a drug trip. This movie is weird.
Kakashi appears, after some water from the place for tea? While the residents deny him because he's a troublemaker. Koga stepping up to muzzle him out, which only leads the two to a sword duel.
Oh, now I get where they are.
The flight's interrupted as a white harpy flies by.
Hey, wait! That's Garuda from Final Fantasy XIV! What? Not the only similarity in design. The bad guys in 14 are a dead ringer for Sigma. There's a reason the Garo works really well in its setting.
Nonetheless, Koga chases after it when Zaraba reveals that this is his magic coat. Kiria summoning for him a white rabbit cycle to chase after it.
He's certainly going down the rabbit hole on this one. Damn it, that was funny!
Kakashi chases after him as well, intent on continuing the duel, only for all three of them to be captured by a passing Judam, who is amused by Koga. However, Judam is confused by his lack of emotion, not acting as if he even is a human with his stoicism. He demands his coat returned to him, Judam refusing, as she views everything in this world as hers to do with, particularly the beautiful things in it she steals the energy from for herself, lamenting how she and the beings of this realm lack the ability to imagine and create as humans do, and die simply from lacking a concept of self.
I'm going to give this away early. Judam actually hates humanity for abandoning her and the others of this realm, disparaging the callousness of how easily we discard and forget the things we create, thus wants to fuse with the Maryu so she can emerge into the human realm to take her revenge on humanity for that. However, she doesn't see that she treats everything around her with the same callousness she despises. Whether that's a result of her attempting to mimic humanity or the root object she was formed from, I'm not certain, but it actually makes her a pretty good villain for both denizens of this realm and for Koga, hitting more home than a general horror's humanity sucks speech, as she's actually the victim of that conduct.
And it's not like her hypocrisy isn't recognized, both Kakashi and Koga calling out her twisting of her views on beauty to fit herself among this definition. Though before she can retaliate for the slight, Kuramaru and Kakashi's house come to their rescue!
Way to go, Springtrap! Wait, no!
As they flee, Koga's coach still refuses to come to him despite its appreciation of their rescue, not recognizing him as her owner without the Garo-ken, meaning that's next on their list of acquisitions. Kakashi now makes nice, trying to get Koga's help in fusing with the Maryu, and why his wish is a lot more benign than Judam's.
No, you were supposed to ask for a brain. The Tin Man gets a heart, and the Lion gets courage.
Actually, considering what Kakashi actually is, this makes him the Pinocchio of this story.
And yes, the Western fairy tale homages just stack themselves like a Jenga tower in this film. I'm probably only catching a fraction of them as it is.
Regardless, Koga refuses, declaring he's going to kill the Maryu, assumedly because it won't actually allow him to achieve that goal, leaving with Kiria, who comes for him. However, in their brief absence, Judam's minions have raided Kiria's home and taken almost everyone. The remaining bookman, Raudo, telling them what went down, before Koga is allowed to vividly see what happens when one of the objects dies. They don't cease to function and lose their form. Everything that was them is erased, including all memory of them.
I'm assuming everyone in my audience has heard the phrase, someone's not actually gone as long as you remember them, right? Well, the objects don't have that luxury, and that makes every life here all the more precious, as once they're gone, you won't have anything of them left.
また同じだ。とても大切なものでも無になってしまえば忘れてしまう。残るのは痛みだけだ。
But in this case, Koga can at least gift Kiria with the name of his lost friend to at least match the hole in his heart, promising that he won't forget him either. Meru is revealed to have been taken by Judam as a sacrifice to the Maryu, sending her down into a black gate forming among a sea of sands and distorted buildings, which then freeze solid. Her sacrifice is delayed by Kakashi coming back for the scale Judam stole, the act distracting her as Koga and Kiria come to Meru's rescue. However, also there in the distance is the Garo-ken, Koga going to reclaim it so he can fight again at his best. Curses! Defeated by my own sword! Eventually, though, he just punches it, its form exploding into red, in which he grasps his reformed sword. Oh, hi, Taiga. What are you doing here?
And for that matter, how are you here? And again, this is what trips me up about the dead trainee kid's illusion of Makai Senki. This series uses this kind of thing all the time. It's kind of hard to differentiate the delusion or dream from someone actually coming from the afterlife to talk to someone living. Occam's razor!
Taiga repeats what I said earlier about this realm, about it being defined by thought, as the resting place of the forgotten, and that being key to solving all of this. And with the Garo-ken retrieved, his goat returns as well.
Best scene in the movie! That was so many adjectives I can use to describe that single motion and transition, and all for the simple action of a creature turning into an object. Kamen Rider Ghosts spent a full series trying to mimic this with their ghost parkas, and they fail in comparison to just this one moment.
俺はいつもお前と共にいる。その思いはお前の盟友たちと同じ思いだ。
Kakashi's house is destroyed, Koga rescuing him, before charging into Judam's castle to confront her, effortlessly marching through her minions, and shown to be immune to her powers to erase. She reveals her motivations that I already spoiled to him in battle, before getting the opportunity to use the scale to take the Maryu's power for her own, becoming...
Aw, it's so cute! Gotta have weird definitions of beauty.
Koga struggles against this thing, as it proceeds to spit out blackened objects, presumably the remains of everything else here Judam has devoured.
Come to think of it, I should check my D&D manuals. Are there dragons that spit metal?
Ultimately, she uses them to manifest into a larger black and steel construct for her true dragon body, breaking off from battling Koga, as now she can actually go to the human world. But Koga's not going to let her. But even armoring up and calling up Goten doesn't give him an advantage against her, the steel dragon continuing to advance and evolve before him and his allies. They're knocked back, Goten's lost, and he even loses his grip on the Garoken, until he's pinned and fired on by the dragon, eroding away his armor, and everything that he was. At least until Kakashi intervenes, showing a mechanical art he's displayed from time to time in the film.
人よ俺たちの思いだ受け取れ
I'd call this Deus Ex Machina, but this is consistent with not only Garo's other power-up forms, bar Hono no Kokuin, and this movie actually gave an explanation for it. The forms of the armors defined by the feelings of the wielders and those around them.
And yes, this is the blue dragon form of Garo. And it has to be the single worst looking one we've had.
And I'm counting the one from the Ashura special where rings grow out of its ears, and the dual-equipped amalgam in that.
I'm not even sure if I should even call it a Garo form, though. This looks more like an upgrade to Goten that Koga is just riding. It taking the power of those rabbit scooters from earlier to just boost and ram right through the Maryu to its core, which Koga then slices in twain.
許せ。ジュダム。
Kind of a cheap ending, but I get the idea that at least before her end, her grievances were acknowledged and she could find solace in knowing they were valid. It works for me.
Thus, both worlds are saved, but Kakashi's sacrifice of his heart leaves him on death's door. But even then, Kakashi finds himself remembering who and what he was, because Koga remembers that for him. He was a training dummy, like the one we saw Leo had fixed up for trainees to use at the beginning of the film, as he had been broken little by little as the children surpassed his ability. Joyful at their advancement, as it meant they had become strong, and that being an identity Koga recognized by his fighting style being the same as that tool that in turn helped him become the man he is.
俺を作ったのは誰だとこの地の者たちに聞かれたお前も俺を作った一人だ
じゃあ
Kirya and Maryu thank him, before Kirya and Kuramaru are both reclaimed in reality by their owners, showing that the denizens here aren't so forgotten as they believe themselves. This place merely existing as an appeasement of thought while they await the return of their owners. But as Koga sees a remaining Fang from the dragon, he destroys it, as it's not what he's after. That's not what the Fang is. As everything here is a metaphor, and he's had the Fang all along.
For he is the Kwisatz Haderach!
違うかガジャリ
そう俺の騎士ガロよそしてまた
Again, explaining every 11th hour superform in the franchise, except Hononokokuins.
しかし甲賀はガジャリ様の一部ではない。
いや、魔界騎士はガジャリの力を授かって生まれたんだ。守りし者として。
But doesn't that directly contradict all prior statements about Gajari? Or is it more that he is a manifestation of the collective unconsciousness of humanity like this realm, made to create and assist those that become their protectors, thus making this a chicken and egg kind of thing? Actually, that kind of works, but again I feel more of an elaboration would have helped to clear up concerns of contradiction.
Well, no matter. Gajari gives them the gate out of there, with Maryu revealing she's Kaoru the Makai Goldfish. Koga revealing that he already knew.
As did I. The outfit kind of gave it away, as did the fact she initially manifested as a pair of golden wings and a painting.
Thus we return to reality. Rei, having won the Makai Night tournament, only be confronted by Koga as he predicted and wanted to happen. The two having a match, and Rei revealing he wasted his trip to the land of the dead by manifesting Taiga.
Seriously? No closure for your loved ones? I mean, I know you avenged them in the first series, but no parting words or lingering thoughts you'd want to put to rest, dude? Kinda feels like a wasted opportunity.
勝てるかな二人相手に
望むところだ。
But Koga's journey as the lead protagonist doesn't end there. A post-credit scene bringing us back to Kaoru and their reunion. Ah, closure.
You know, Koga in the Promised Lands is a better Alice in Wonderland movie than the Tim Burton films. Poor Johnny Depp and his streak of terrible movies.
I actually really like this film. The creative mind of Keita Amamiya is all over the place in this astoundingly contiguous feeling setting, despite all of the chaotic elements present here. They all flow together and feel like a natural setting, even though a majority of it all is computer generated. Even with the physical suits, props, and people in scenes, there's little that gives away that almost every scene in the movie was shot on a massive green screen set.
Hollywood has yet to do digitally created environments and CGI-heavy works this well, in my opinion. Most of the time, as I've said in other videos, choosing to skimp on the expense of selling much of that imagery by instead making everything darker visually so they don't need to worry if the rendering of everything looks bad, since they can make out the detail. Which, more in my eyes, makes it obvious how fake it actually is.
But here, everything is so vibrant and colorful and articulate in its design, almost the exact antithesis of my issues with a lot of Hollywood CGI, and to an extent the more poor effects that can appear in the main series as well. And as the setting is sold so well, the journey in it is all the more accented. But as a conclusion to Koga's time as Garo's lead protagonist, as, while Ryosei Konishi reprised the role for the last episode of Makai Retsun, he's otherwise been absent from the franchise past this, I'm less partial to this film being a good one, though at least there is a point to it. The running theme throughout it is one of loss and grief, matching that of the Fang of Lamentation Koga is both searching for and revealed to be. As, admittedly, there is an overtone of sorrow to himself, the loss of his family, the crisis with Kaoru, even to an extent his duties as a knight, forcing him to sever connections corrupted by horrors with a certainty of conviction. While it doesn't always show through his external stoicism, there are signs when looking back that the reason he rarely smiles is it hurts too much for him to want to. The similar lamentations of the beings of this realm with their own losses mirror his own. Explains why he treats Judam like he does in her elimination of her, and even the comfort he provides to Kiria, Kakashi, and his lost artifacts, that they have a place in the world just as he does. But why I don't think it that good for his final appearance is it doesn't pay as much respect or time to the supporting characters and giving them altogether a send-off, since the series after this would begin the cycling of different armor bearers as the leads. Hell, most of their cameos at the beginning and end feel a bit worthless to the grand scheme.
This complaint has, however, been remedied by Makai Retsuden and the Zero spin-offs, as they both showcase those first-era characters in additional tales that show how they've continued on in their own journeys, which was more of what I'd wanted anyways. And to be fair, by not doing that, it does leave open the possibility of returning to that time if they ever think of another tale to tell with those characters. Though since they then did Makai no Hana as a direct timeline sequel down the line, there's now the complication of not intentionally contradicting continuity.
Still, for what it is, Soukoku no Maryu is pretty enjoyable as a conclusion to the Makai Senki material.
But we're not quite done with this sect of interim Garo movies. Rekka and Jalbi have a spin-off film I need to talk about. Thus, in a few months, we'll be talking about the Togen Flute. And no, it's not the one from Bandcamp. For he is the Kouga Saejima! Long live the fighters!